Hello there, welcome back to another review. So having looked at Symphony of the Night, my previous game review, I thought, you know what, whilst we're on a Castlevania trip, whilst we got that Castlevania theme going, let's keep it going, shall we? So I thought today we'd have a look at Rondo of Blood, that was made back in 1993 and originally released for the TurboGrafx 16. And this is the game that Symphony of the Night was actually a sequel to, although two very different games, this one being much more linear. You could look at the two as sort of part of the same package. For one thing, they both contain a lot of the same enemies, and that's why the two were packaged together for the Requiem collection, which I think come out, was it 2018 that come out? But yeah, the two games were packaged together. Rondo of Blood was even remade for the Super Nintendo back in 1995, where it went under the title Dracula X. Now, for a lot of Western gamers, they would have missed this game, as back in the day it was only exclusively released in Japan. I know I did. I don't think I even played it for the first time much before the 2000s. It took me a while to get my hands on a copy, but I wasn't one of these people that played it back in the day. And it was so annoying when you had a franchise like Castlevania that was so well known. It was popular all over the world, and when a title was like exclusive just to Japan, you felt as a gamer you were severely missing out. Like, you felt, I really want to play this game and I can't, you know, because at the time it just wasn't that easy to get your hands on a copy. Now in this you play as Richter Belmont, and I always found this game so damn hard. It's not the game is long, there are like 9 stages in total, but I remember really getting annoyed with this game. I remember like throwing my controller, I remember just getting so irate with this game, but I was at the same time having such a blast with it as well. And it's one of them kind of games that you just always wanted that one last go, you wanted that one last try. But yeah, I remember back in the day playing this for the first time. Only 9 stages, as I say, and it's not like all of them stages are overly long, but I even thought I completed it way back. I remember sometimes just like pulling my hair out. Okay, I was literally pulling my hair out sometimes at certain moments. I mean, when you fight Death on stage 5 in particular, this was one of them moments. Okay, this was one of them moments where I just remember just screaming probably at my TV. Probably exaggerating, but I just remember being very, very angry indeed. But as I say, just screaming at my team. But by the time you get to stage 6, if you haven't got to grips with the game by then, all I can say is good luck, as that level was just an onslaught of bosses. Have like Frankenstein's monster, a giant bat, Medusa and the mummy, sort of all in one go. And you know that so many games do that, when you barely get through the levels anyway, like fighting the bosses, and then some games you'll get to about level 5 or 6, stage 5 or 6, or you know, later on in the game, like 2/3 of the way in, and then suddenly you've got to fight all the bosses in one go. So that's exactly what Rondo of Blood does here. Of course, loads of gamers can speed run it and whip through the game without breaking a sweat, but me back in the day, yeah, it was one of them frustrating games. But that never stopped me playing, as like all the classic and great Castlevania traits are there. The music is there, the whip, the great level designs, sub-weapons like the dagger, holy water and axe, etc. And as you as Richter set off to save your beloved Annette. So it's one of them games you probably will be tearing your hair out. Just so I remember I was back in the day, but there's just something about that Castlevania gameplay, something about when that music kicks in the first time, there's just something so addicting about these classic Castlevania games, and Rondo of Blood is another fine example. Maybe not as classic to some people as Symphony of the Night, might even be too hard for some people, which might put them off, but I have a lot of fond memories of playing this game. I didn't play it originally when it first came out, but I did manage, I can't remember exactly how, but I was playing it, I can't remember even what console I was playing it on at the time, but I just remember it was like around the 2000s time. I just managed to get a copy of it, and I was just loving it. I played it like solidly for like a couple of weeks. I just couldn't put it down. And it was one of them games too where I thought the opening was like so old school. Yes, the graphics may look so primitive to some now, but the opening where you are storming along on your horse and cart and in your rain and the thunder and lightning, and then sort of Death appears above the trees in the distance, and I just remember that being so cool back in the day. And if you have played the game and you have seen that scene, you'll know it's just one hell of a classic introduction to a Castlevania game. So as I mentioned, the game is quite difficult, but the developers were sort of aware of this, or at least they wanted to give you a bit of a helping hand. So if you were struggling with the game, the developers do give you a helping hand, in that if you unlock Maria on stage 2 after getting the key and freeing her, she becomes a playable character. And I always felt like sort of Richter was like the normal come hard mode, if you will, and Maria was sort of the easy mode for one reason. I mean, for one reason, like she was look her as easiest, that she had double jump, right? She could double jump, which in itself was like a godsend. It's like okay, finally, like, she's got a bit more maneuverability. She's like, so the fact she had double jump, it was just a blessing, you know, the fact like she could get through levels with that ability. She had her dove attack too that done some damage. Her sub weapons like the dragons seemed to do more damage as well, and she had a very fast slide too. So if you are struggling with the game and want to beat it, my advice is just play as Maria. So even if you beat Rondo with Maria, which let's be honest is a much easier run of the game, you really feel like you haven't truly beaten it. It feels like you're cheating. It feels like you've taken a bit of an easy run. So you know damn well, if you've got any conscience and if you are a true gamer, you have to complete it properly. You can't do it on easy mode. You have to do it the way it was intended. So go back to the beginning, pick Richter and do it properly. And there's also other things that add to the game's replayability. There are alternate routes, along with Maria can rescue some of her other maidens. Another thing that helps is there is no time limit on the stages, so you can just take your time. Again, there are little things that developers do give you which do help. The fact there is no time limit, you can take your time. You don't have to completely crash through the game and the levels as fast as you can. You can very much take your time, even though I've always felt Castlevania is best played quite. It's got a great pace to it, Castlevania, and when the blood gets pumping and that gameplay gets flowing and you're taking out the enemies and the level design's really good and the music kicks in, you just want to keep going. It's not the kind Castlevanias were never the kind of game like I felt I want to take my time with, because the games always had a great sense of momentum about them, and Rondo of Blood is a fine example of that. Also as well, talking about there's no time limit on the stages themselves, okay, there's not that many of them, and also they're not, by and large, they're not really that big. It's actually quite a compressed game, but for whatever reason, whether it's because of the difficulty or how hard and how unforgiving the game can be at sometimes, it does feel epic in nature. And in typical old school retro gaming fashion, it's just a matter of memorising moves, patterns, what enemies to fight, what enemies to avoid or jump over, and that was part of the fun back in the day. It was just learning that certain pattern that could help you get through the game, that level or that section a bit quicker. It's like, okay, I can jump over these two, okay, I've got to fight that one, but I might be able to avoid that one, and just suddenly realising, okay, I actually don't have to fight every enemy as long as I get to the end of the level. And that was the great thing with 2D platformers, is that the goal was just to get to the end. It was just, all you had to do was get to the end of the stage. By and large, for the most part of old school 2D games in the 80s, 90s, it was about just reaching the end of the level. So with Castlevania like this, when a game was a bit difficult or it wasn't exactly super easy, it was simply a case sometimes of just realising to yourself, okay, I don't have to fight that. I can jump over this. There's another way around this. And it just, when you realise, okay, I can get through that section really easy. And of course, once the muscle memory and the patterns kick in and you start to get that flow going, Rondo of Blood really does work. And the thing is, talking about games back in the day, it wasn't about necessarily completing it. I mean, yeah, if you completed it, great, and a lot of time games were completed, but it was about mastering it. It was about getting that newer high score. It was about getting through it a bit quicker than you did last time. And that's what games were so, like back in the day, there was that element, there was so much replayability with them that you could always go, oh, I'm going to try and get through that a bit faster this time. Or I've got a week, like Sunday I'm doing nothing, I'm going to try and play Rondo of Blood and see if I can master that stage and things like that. And it was all these little things that kept you coming on back for more. As I say, it was just so much fun back in the day and a huge part of it. And Castlevania is a huge testament to that, as you always wanted to beat the games properly and discover all the secrets each instalment has to offer. And so that's why it's such, hands into this day, is such a beloved franchise. Now, going back to what, I know this is sort of consistent of most of the review, but going back to sort of the difficulty of the game, or how hard it may be, to a Castlevania vet, it probably isn't that hard. You'll probably get through this quite easily to a degree, but I think anybody new to Castlevania, if this is like, say, back in the day, this was the first Castlevania you played, or even now and you're checking out old school games and this is the first one you pick up, you might be a bit in trouble, because it's, like I say, it's not entirely unforgiving. Yes, there's little things the developers do give you to make it a little bit easier, but by and large, Castlevania Rondo is exactly what it should be. It's challenging but fair. It's never alright, like I said, back in the day I was tearing my hair out, but it never felt you was like, that is so cheap, or that's totally unfair, how can I get around that? because you, like I mentioned, you always wanted that one last go, because you always knew that the next go you could get through it no problem. The bosses in this one are awesome too, from the likes of the Headless Swordsman, Werewolf and Minotaur, though Death I found a complete pain. When you do finally beat him, you feel so good about yourself. I know many fans out there go for Symphony of the Night or Super Castlevania 4 as two of the best entries in the series, but I think Rondo of Blood still needs some love too. I think it's definitely top 5 Castlevanias, it's got to be, right? As I say, I know Symphony of the Night and Super Castlevania 4, they're usually the top 2 big hitters. That's what you usually think of when people think of classic, you know, Castlevania done perfectly from start to finish. But I think Rondo of Blood in itself should be up there. I think it's got to, for me personally, it's at least top 5. And it's such a, like I mentioned, it's such a well-rounded and balanced game. Yes, you will die a lot, but it never feels unfair, as you always know at the back of your mind, I've got this, I can do this, let me, you know, just let me try that one more time. It's like, okay, I've got to go out, I've got to go and meet somebody, I've got to do something, I've got to do homework or whatever it is, but it's like, let me just have that one last go, because I know I can get through that bit. And that's the great thing about this entry, you just always want that next go, and it keeps you coming back for more. Add that with some very retro cutscenes limited to the system's capabilities of the time, and you have yet another solid installment from the good folks at Konami. Make sure to go and check out Rondo of Blood if you haven't already, because it's a fantastic Castlevania game, sometimes overshadowed by the likes of, as I mentioned, Super Castlevania 4 and Symphony of the Night, but it's a damn solid game. It's a really good Castlevania game. Play it, let me know what you think of it, or if you have played it, let me know what your thoughts are on it. It might even be your favourite Castlevania. If it is, I'd very much love to hear from you. So thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.